Welcome dear students to this lecture on topic Challenges of Development Administration in India. Some of the key objectives of this lecture are: first, to understand the contextual growth of development administration in India; second, to analyze and understand some of the major challenges of development administration in India; and finally, to underscore certain facts to uncover the deeper administrative problems with their impact upon the development of administration and administration of development in India. My dear students, after the long period of colonialism, many countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America gained independence. These newly independent states like India faced many problems of diverse nature, largely categorized as economic, social, and political. India, after gaining independence on 15th August 1947, had two immediate major goals to achieve. First, the nation building, and second, the socio-economic progress. These two goals became the major factors for the growth and emergence of development administration in India, as it provided the means of implementing such policies and plans that were oriented towards achieving the goals. However, one of the biggest issues in this regard is, even if it has been more than 75 years of post-independence and a significant period ever since development administration has been practically as well as theoretically implemented in India, yet there has not been enough development and enough welfare. So, in order to get in terms with such a grave issue at our hand, first we are going to talk in detail what development administration is, and then analyze the evolution of India as a country and also as a specimen of development administration, and identify the general as well as specific amateur as well as technical issues experienced during the course of the time so far. My dear students, development administration is the process of executing developmental programs and projects in the direction of nation building and socio-economic progress through public administration. As defined by Edward Weidner, and I quote, "Development administration is concerned with maximizing innovation for development," unquote, which he further defines as, and I quote, "the process of planned or intended change in the direction of modernity or nation building and socio-economic change," unquote. Thus, development administration was the most appropriate enterprise to be adopted in India soon after its independence. Likewise, one may say that development administration in India started with the two major challenges of nation building in order to make India a viable, stable, and prosperous state, and its socio-economic progress for the progressive reinforcement of social and material conditions of the people living here. Development administration has played a critical role both in improving citizens' life and in restoring legitimacy of the administrative systems in developing countries. Conceptually, development administration is viewed as development of administration and administration of development. While the former refers to developing the administrative capacities or strengthening caliber and competence of development administrators, the latter implies execution of development policies, programs, and projects of the government. In the age of liberalization, privatization, and globalization, development administration was found inadequate to serve the purpose of governments. New variants of development administration were evolved in developing countries to meet the exigencies of time. An Indian scholar, L. Goswami, wrote in 1955 about the working and structure of development administration in India. Goswami is often credited with coining the term development administration in his writing The Structure of Development Administration. He explains in a very detailed manner that how India soon after its independence, adopted the development administration in order to achieve its desired goals. To begin with, India adopted the Community Development Program in the year 1952. Goswami goes on to explain that how the program faced various challenges soon after its application. He identified a set of challenges that impeded the effective implementation of the community development program as he wrote, and I quote, "As the program expanded and more blocks came to be taken up, it was found that this arrangement was giving rise to certain serious administrative problems. In the first place, there was a noticeable tendency for the Development Commissioner to build up a separate development department of his own, and the existing departments of government like agriculture, animal husbandry, education, etc., cooperated only by fits and starts. Secondly, the problem of inspection and supervision of the actual field work was becoming increasingly difficult for the Development Commissioner and his small staff at headquarters. Thirdly, the speed of execution of the program was being impeded by lack of delegation of authority to the lower officers and by excessive centralization. Finally, it was becoming progressively less feasible to ensure the flow of the best technical advice available in the state to the village level worker, particularly in non-agricultural spheres." Unquote. Therefore, the subsequent administrative changes, according to Goswami, have been directed towards the solution of these problems. Likewise, since these initial efforts were made, the concept of development administration has been gaining momentum with the emergence of a number of development programs and failure of the traditional pattern of administrative system. Such scenario has motivated many scholars to explore on the various aspects related to development administration in India, like the various challenges it has been going through over the course of its development in India. There are a lot of challenges in development administration in India, and not all can be dealt with, such as the diversification and unwanted depth of such challenges. Some of the major issues and challenges of development administration in India are: number one, transparency and accountability. For all the developed countries, there is a significant priority given towards accountability and transparency, which is a cornerstone towards effective outcome of any sort. Contrariwise, in case of third world countries or underdeveloped countries, least or no priority is given towards transparency or accountability, and thus a disappointing developmental outcome. It is observed that increasing corruption in the matters of delivery of goods and services has become a challenging factor. Such lapses are representative at both individual as well as collective levels and has been one of the primary impediments towards any development, particularly in the administration. The extent of corruption in the system is so large that it has become more of a norm or a cultural characteristic. The level of corruption has gone so high that there have been considerations and recommendations that a fraction of corruption should be legalized, as uprooting the menace of corruption looks like a distant dream or very close to impossible for a lot of stakeholders and experts. Furthermore, the two-way traffic approach has not been as practically implemented as highlighted theoretically. For example, there is no or very little emphasis on bottom-up approach of development, and instead all the focus and energy and even resources propagate top-down approach of development. Such asymmetric persuasion between top, bottom and bottom-up modulations of development is one of the major challenges towards development administration, as it favors lesser and lesser common people participation. What makes bottom-up approach an indispensable pursuit is the home advantage that the indigenous or the local population has, thus privileged with lot of grassroots information, something missing in the top-down approach which is often preferred by the bureaucracy or politicians. Number second, political interference. The most frequent complaint in this regard is that of political interference with administrative tasks. Political prestige motivates some projects. Political pressure rather than merit influences appointments and promotions. Officials abuse their positions because of political influence, to accept bribes, to intimidate the public, to flout regulations, or to ignore instructions. Prevalence of the political interference at the various stages of the decision making and implementation has created problem, particularly making balance between the elected leaders and recruited administrators has become a challenge. Even if there is no jurisdiction for any politician to intervene in all the realms of development, yet we see a growing political intrusion in domains that do not fall within their sphere of influence. Unfortunately, we see lot of delays and hindrances posed by the politicians due to one reason or the other. For example, a developmental project, more specifically infrastructure development, won't be approved by the minister or MLA in charge unless and until it's somebody who falls within the acquaintance or association. A phone call from a politician to a contractor to hasten or slow down a project is a prime example. What's been happening in India for a very long time now? Another very common example reflecting political interference is a job interview happening, and it's a candidate who has a lot of political approach and no potential being selected, and the candidate who has a very bright potential ignored or dumped. One cannot expect any fair or just development in this scenario, and regrettably it's happening all around the country. The growing animosity between the political parties in India is surely the biggest challenge of development administration in India. There are two major alliances: Congress-led United Progressive Alliance (UPA), formed after the 2004 general elections, predominantly with the support from the leftist political parties, and National Democratic Alliance, that is NDA, founded in 1988, led by the presently running government, Bharatiya Janata Party. The rivalry between NDA and UPA is growing at a very rapid rate, exponentially, to say the least, to the extent that lot of the leaders of one particular party have been incarcerated when they are in opposition. The developmental programs and schemes initiated by one political party when in power have been changed and chopped by another party when that party comes in power. For example, on 9th of July 1951, India's first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru presented the first 5-year plan to the Parliament. 5-year plans were a formal mode of planning adopted by the Indian government after independence for effective and balanced utilization of resources. They were formulated by the Planning Commission of India, which was established on 15th of March 1950. The Commission was tasked with the responsibility of raising the standard of living in the country through proper allocation of resources, increasing production, and enabling employment opportunities for everybody. The same 5-year plans were laid to rest by NDA government in 2015, which marked the 12th 5-year plan, and it was considered to be the last 5-year plan. The decades-old 5-year plans were replaced by a 3-year action plan, which will be part of a 7-year strategy paper and a 5-year vision document. Moreover, the Planning Commission has been replaced by the Niti Aayog. Number third, bureaucratic apathy. Increasing gaps between targets and achievements in the matters of planning and the program implementation marks the era of the bureaucratic apathy in India. Despite institutionalization of various committees and commissions, provisions of training and exposure, the case of bureaucratic apathy is believed to be continuing in various administrative units. There can be multiple reasons for such apathy, like remote or distant places often experience bureaucratic apathy as it takes a lot out of a bureaucrat or any of its representations to reach out a territory that is not such easily accessible. Then there are places like a capital of a country or a state, easily reachable or accessible, that does not face any bureaucratic apathy at all. Instead, all the developmental persuasion takes place in such places only or exclusively. There can also be territorial or ideological divisions within a society that can promote bureaucratic apathy. For example, rural-urban divide is one perfect example reflecting bureaucratic apathy, as bureaucrats belonging to rural areas show some apathy towards urban regions and vice versa. Number 4. Inefficiency. Inefficiency can be understood in various ways. Inefficient planning, to begin with, can have an adverse impact on development administration at the very beginning. Then we have inefficiency due to improper monitoring and supervision of a lot of developmental projects that has a serious potential to cripple the functioning of administration in India. Inefficiency in follow-up projects is again a serious challenge for development administration in India, as very less or no focus is paid towards the importance of follow-up. Likewise, there is again no or very little importance given towards a review of a developmental project, something that is also a valid reason. Number 5, more government and less governance. We see that there is a continuous expansion of more and more government machinery, both infrastructure wise as well as human resource. Furthermore, additional portfolios are included in already sea of portfolios, but the practical outcome is not much promising. The issues of governance, such as effective decision making, timely implementation, and effective delivery of goods and services, have been facing many hurdles because of overemphasis on systems and procedures only. The over-reliance on this analogy of more government and less governance has been a thorn in the flesh of the common citizens of India, for whom any means of effective participation in governance is becoming a distant dream. Contextually relating the analogy, actually it is minimizing government and maximizing governance, an ideal portrayal of governance in India. The idea of minimum government and maximum governance is an appealing one, as it implies that government will be efficient and that a smaller bureaucracy with more skilled people will be better than a larger one. This implication itself points to at least one condition that must be satisfied for small government to be effective, that is, the presence of skilled people, or more generally, the placement of the right person in the right position. The present system is found wanting in this regard, with civil servants often lacking the experience or domain knowledge that their positions require. However, if we have a look at most of the ministers at the central or the state level, placement of the right person in the right position looks like a distant dream. Number 6. Rising expectation. The increasing expectations of people from various administrative units and departments also created challenges. In many cases, such situation has created tension between people and administrators. With social media being used so profusely, we are witnessing ministers or legislators or bureaucrats, often among people, creating a lot of rhetoric and theatrics when it comes to their speeches. But when it comes to delivery, not much is being done by many. Only a handful stand the test of their character and promises. What such rhetoric and dramatization do is they raise expectations among people, and when such expectations are not met, most often than not, it becomes a challenge, a dangerous challenge of development administration in India. Number 7. Handling of local issues. Handling of local level socio-economic issues, development matters and political matters have become a challenging task for the administrative managers. The coordination gap or gap between how to do and what to do between the local level and the national level administrative units also prevails in many cases. There is still a significant population in India that speaks their own native or indigenous languages only. When administrators or bureaucrats approach such populace, since they do not know anything about the language, so the bridges of communications are not strong enough, so not much communication in real sense is expected. Number 8. Insurgency and extremism. India has witnessed an overwhelming rise in insurgency and cross-border terrorism. States like Jammu and Kashmir, more precisely the 7 sister states, Northeast, Punjab, have experienced violent phases of conflict over and over again. Additionally, Chinese invariable incursions across the border of Arunachal Pradesh and Ladakh has also been one of the primary reasons why there has been a significant lag when it comes to development administration. Development is only possible when there is peace or at least no conflict, as most of the focus goes into counter-terrorism or anti-insurgency operations, and lesser focus is on the major parameters of development administration. The annual defense budget of India for the year 2023 and 24 stands at a whopping 5.94 lakh crore Indian rupees, which is a clear reflection of how important defense of a country really is. Number 9. Grievance redressal. One of the paramount challenges faced by development administration over the period of time is the lack of a well-established and effective grievance redressal system in India. Though on papers there is a grievance redressal system, but on ground when it comes to the implementation, there is more and more of disillusionment and lesser hope associated. Grievance redressal is a management and governance related process used commonly in India. While the term grievance redressal primarily covers the receipt and processing of complaints from citizens and consumers, a wider definition includes actions taken on any issue raised by them to avail services more effectively. Grievance redressal mechanism is mandated in government agencies and departments that are directly involved with serving citizens and organizations. Usually, a public relations officer is designated with the role of receiving complaints and initiating corrective actions. But this mechanism often fails on account of lack of authority vested in the public relations officers over officers of various capacities. The government of India has made effort to systematize the nature of grievance redressal through legislation, being driven by civil society agitations under leadership of Anna Hazare and Arvind Kejriwal for the enactment of Jan Lokpal Bill into law. Private businesses and non-profits engaged in service delivery such as hotels, restaurants, colleges, etc., often tend to set up their own mechanisms such as feedback forms and contact us pages. Such means to get direct feedback enable businesses to take corrective actions in time. Governments also often accept the responsibility of consumer protection from private organizations through legislation as well as setting up consumer courts and organizations for dispute resolution. So, dear students, that brings us to the end of this lecture. Looking forward to meet you in the next lecture. We can explore new and exciting topic. Till then, take care and goodbye.